Welcome to the Mindfully Masculine podcast with Charles and Dan, where we take a conscious, holistic, and direct approach to relationships, mental health, and self-improvement. For additional content, visit our website at mindfullymasculine.com. And to interact with us, our guests, and your fellow listeners, join the Mindfully Masculine group on Facebook.
Good morning, Charles.
Good morning, Dan.
Like
long time no see.
Yeah, it feels like it's been longer than usual.
Yeah, it does. It's been a busy few weeks for me, and I assume for you too. I know part of it was definitely busy for you because I ran into you a couple times, and you look very busy.
Yeah. It's been a couple of weeks for sure. For me, and I know for you, and we haven't even really gotten into that outside of the podcast yet. So I know we'll talk a little bit about that afterwards. So I'm looking forward to that, catching up and sharing some of the stuff that I've been going through, and definitely want to hear what you've been going through.
Yeah. Not. I think based on how we do this, pretty much everything going on in our lives will be appropriate content for the podcast at some point. But I got some stuff going on that I don't want to bring up yet for our listeners. But I've spent some time doing some fun travel, like little vacation-y type things, just around the immediate Central Florida area.
Nice.
And I mean, which can be fun until, it backs right into a long work thing. And it still feels like, there's still stuff around my house / camper that I just haven't been able to do for a while. Right now I'm defrosting my freezer. I've got a crap ton of laundry from my recent travels that I have to catch up on. Now,
is a crap ton the same as a regular ton, or are we thinking this is a little bit extra here?
I think it's metric. I think one's customary and one's metric. If I understand, if I remember correctly from what I learned in school.
Yeah. So the crap ton is measured in meters and not yards. Is that? I believe. Is that right?
I believe it's decaliters. To be specific. I have no idea what a deciliter is. That's.
I think part of my a new system, the Charles system.
Part of measurement. The American privilege of not having to know what anything metric is until I'm looking for a socket because the quarter inch doesn't fit the screw quite right. So then I got to try to remember what 10 millimeters is.
Yeah.
Sockets and guns. That's the only time that metric ever plays a part in my life.
Right. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, some, I guess, the whole fluid ounces versus milliliters. I mean, with cooking. Yeah.
And the one there's a diet and fitness book, which is going to be our topic for today that we'll talk about, where the guy who wrote it was in some kind of a class at a gym, and the instructor was talking about burning calories. And so at the end of it, he goes up to the gal and he's like, "So what exactly is a calorie?"
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And they had no clue what a calorie was, but a calorie is the amount of energy it takes to raise the temperature of 1 milliliter of water 1 degree.
1 degree centigrade. Centigrade of all things too,
of course.
Right? And when people talk about calories, it's actually kilocalories that we don't realize. When we say calories, we're just
kcal.
Kcal is actually. So what we're talking about are actually thousands of calories that we commonly call a calorie. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good to have somebody with your background on here to sort of zero in on what I'm trying to talk about.
Yeah, sure.
So let's see what else is going on. The Yaris is dead. It's sitting in front of my camper right now.
It's still there.
Yes, it is. It's still here because I paid the thing off years ago, but CarMax never released the lien on my title. So then I had to, because what incentive do they have? They've got their money. Why?
Yeah. Why do extra work? Why do their job? Why do their job? I mean, the guy who's doing my patio still, it's been a month and still sand everywhere. And I mean, I took him for a good guy and paid him the full amount. And I mean, he has come back, but now it's like once a week and he does like half a job and then leaves. Sorry, go ahead. So about people not doing their job at CarMax. Sorry, I'm a little bitter about this experience here because my hot tub that you were going to use is still out in the yard collecting dust.
That's unacceptable. So you would think that the one thing that could motivate an individual to finish a job, at least it's like you've got this incentive of at least I can get it off my list. At least I can feel like it's not hounding me and badgering me. Like I still got this thing out there that I have to finish. Where corporations definitely don't have that. It's like CarMax Finance Inc. They get the rest of their money, and their shareholders don't care if they release the lien on my car so that I can sell it. I mean that matters to them not at all. So I've driven the car for, like I said, years after I paid the car note off. So it's like, at some point it just times off of their system, so they can't even pull it up to see that they still have a lien on it.
Oh no!
So it has to be research and all this stuff, and it's finally done. It's all done. I've got the title in my hand, but now, my car is basically one notch above junker status. But if I can get it running. I got this plug-in battery charger maintainer device from Walmart yesterday. So if I can get it to the point where the battery is charged enough that it'll start up and it'll drive, then I might be able to eke out another couple dollars from the, we take junk cars company that I'm dealing with. And so that's where I'm at today. But unfortunately, where the car is currently parked and broke down is too far for me to plug in without an extension cord. So as soon as you and I are done, I have to run to Home Depot, get an extension cord, plug the car in for probably a day or so to get the battery juiced up, and then see if maybe I could, get another $50 out of the thing, because it'll actually start up and drive versus tow truck only solutions.
Hey, man, I admire the motivation in you to do this and try to make the most out of it.
Part of me feels like what I should do is just take whatever I can get for somebody to come get it ASAP, but leaving money on the table, that's just not wasting money is the Calabrito way, but leaving money on the table,
that's not the Calabrito way.
It's somebody else's wallet. That is not the Calabrito way.
Yeah, right.
So that's where I'm at. And then I guess that's pretty much a summary of, I've been sick too for like the last week. I mean, I'm starting to feel better. My one client that's a nursing home is in the middle of a COVID outbreak right now. The number of positive cases went from 17 to 18 while I was on site yesterday trying to get some work done.
Wow.
And now my attitude is like, do I really need to go back there, or can I'm just going to stay. I'm just going to stay remote until we're not in literal outbreak mode on site anymore. So I'm going to take at least a week off of visiting them to let things calm down a little bit, because I did take a test yesterday and I'm still negative. I still haven't caught this thing, and I'm gonna try to keep that streak alive since April of 2020.
Yeah, a couple of friends of mine that I saw last week, they came down with it, fortunately they're saying it's fairly mild, just kind of like a head cold. So
that's good.
It's good. Yeah, hopefully that's the case for the older folks in the nursing home as well.
I do want to talk about one current event thing that has been on my mind recently.
The Will Smith slap. Yeah, let's go. Let's do it. Let's do it. That's my favorite topic.
Let's do another episode.
Ever since I won the naming contest, I'm all about it.
Oh, I can understand that. No, I want to talk about the Uvalde shooting out in Texas, which is not only, I mean, the shooting itself, is done, and there's obviously nothing you and I could do about it. I did listen to a podcast by, my hero, Sam Harris, and I really appreciated, he interviewed a reporter who's I mean, the guy's beat is basically violent crime or violence, whether it's terrorism or domestic mass shootings or whatever. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that they pointed out that I really appreciated was this idea of how in the immediate aftermath of something like this, everybody's scrambling to try to figure out what the idea is to stop it from happening again. Mm-hmm. And so much of our intuition is absolutely wrong about what we can do. And one of the things that first occurred to me, and I've heard some politicians, predominantly conservative politicians, say, is what we need to do is, set up our school so that we have one way in, one way out, and we've got an armed person at that entrance / exit so that, we can prevent somebody from getting into a school and doing all this damage.
Mm-hmm.
And, on the surface at first, I thought, yes, that makes sense. Absolutely.
Well,
but
you can't leave. And if you have one way in, one way out,
exactly.
Doesn't make sense to me.
One of the things that this reporter he was interviewing said was, what we need is systems that when they break down, the consequence of the system breaking down is not the worst possible catastrophe imaginable, which that system, that's exactly what it is. If it breaks down and the guy or the two guys with guns do overwhelm the security officers and they get in,
right,
then all they have to do is wait at that one point of exit and just pick people off as they try to escape.
Yep.
Or just go door to door and kill students and teachers as they can. So what this guy suggested is basically we need to architect our schools in such a way that as soon as a kid or a teacher hears a gunshot, everybody can just disperse and get away from the school as quickly as possible, because trying to shoot a moving target is exponentially hard than walking into a classroom and just picking people off who are cowering in the corner.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've talked to a few guys who, they run a school on self-defense and self-protection, and they've actually been contracted by the military and things like that. And the guy I was talking to him one time. I'm like, oh, what if I'm in a situation? That was when all the riots were going on and stuff. And I said, listen, we're going to Daytona Beach for the day. There's potential. There could be some protests and some riots there. How do I, what do we do? If we're confronted, and he goes, leave. He goes, the best defense is not getting involved to begin with. Yes. He's like, run from the situation. And it makes total sense. Like, you're not going to talk somebody down who's, completely angry and, wielding weapons and things like that, in some sort of riot or march. So, don't try it. Yeah. Just get out of the situation any way you can.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, it's kind of brilliant.
Yeah. One of the things they talked about was, when you do have either a hunting rifle or a modern sporting rifle like the AR-15, it takes very little instruction and training to be able to hit a target from like 100 yards. I mean, literally a half hour of training, you could probably get somebody to hit a bullseye from 100 yards with a hunting rifle or an AR-15. Okay. But you start making that target move, like running away or running sideways, and that all goes completely out the window. I mean, you have to be highly trained to be able to take off moving targets. So I mean, in the event of some sort of a shooting situation, as long as you're not, stuck in a room someplace, just run in some direction away from what's happening, and your odds of survival just skyrocket. And then, God, the other thing that blew my mind that they said was, both of them pretty much, well, more Sam Harris than the other guy, but they both kind of agreed. The number one, there was a lot of debate about whether getting kids to mask in schools was going to be a cause of long-term damage, psychological trauma, blah, blah, blah. And you and I probably have different opinions on that. I don't want to get into it, but one of the things that they definitely said was building schools to look like prisons and constantly hitting your kids with mass shooter drills. Yeah, that's not going to be the odds of them odds of them being in a mass shooting at school versus the trauma that they're going to definitely experience if their school looks like a jail and they're constantly being told, here's what happens when a guy with a gun walks in. When you calculate the risk analysis on the odds of something actually happening to them versus them being subjected to the trauma on a daily or weekly basis of going to school in a prison is way worse. So they both had the opinion, like, tell your kids, hey, if you hear gunshots, run in the other direction. If you hear gunshots, break a window in your classroom, jump out, and then run in the other direction. I promise you won't get in trouble for it. Yeah. That's a more effective message to give your kids than I'm dropping you off in front of this prison every day to go to school. And if you hear gunshots, just go hide in the corner. Like that's, that's way worse.
I never thought about that, but you're right. I mean, at least when we were going to school, elementary school, and even high school, it felt like a prison. It was like concrete, small windows. Everything was concrete, small windows, drab paint, everywhere. And I mean, big, heavy doors that locked and stuff. So it really felt like you were kind of imprisoned. I never thought about that until you just mentioned it now. And Yeah, that's kind of odd.
Yeah, and part of the challenge, they said that sort of the legacy thinking, if you want to call it that, is we're still telling our teachers and our kids to respond to a shooting event essentially the way we respond to a fire drill, which is the most important thing is we need to keep track of everybody. We need to know where everybody is so we can do a head count to make sure everybody's safe.
Head count. Yeah.
Where what we need to be doing is saying basically, hey, those, outside the school where there's that field and then on the other side of the field, there's the woods. You hear gunshots, run for the woods.
Yeah.
And just keep running until a grown-up that tells you that you're safe.
Yeah. Yeah. Ironically, I mean, I understand, these days with litigation and everything, and the school system absolutely wants to control everything and keep track of the kids and stuff like that. Right. But it's not, like you said, in these, extreme circumstances, those are, you need to let go of that. I mean, having more control, organizing things, just make things easier for any attacker. Right.
The other part is, the other really dark thing to think about is, especially at the high school level, if the kid that's going to come back with a gun and shoot the place up is going through the same mass shooter drills that all the other students are, then they know exactly what to expect. They know where everybody's going to go and they know what everybody's going to do because they're sitting in the same.
It's a great point.
Yeah, it's a bummer. But the other thing I'll say is, I've been a Second Amendment conservative libertarian guy for most of my life, with this idea that one of the safeguards we have against a bad government coming into power and going tyrannical is the idea that all the citizens have all these guns and the government's not going to try it because it knows that we're all sitting on all these guns, and so it's not going to be able to get away with it. But another core belief I've had for a long time is the idea that the only way you stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, there were 19 good guys with guns standing around for over an hour, not doing anything.
Yeah, that's I don't understand that.
It has this situation has deeply attacked one of the presuppositions I have about the relationship of citizens and guns and safety in this country, because I didn't know that was possible.
Well, here's the thing, right? Those weren't citizens. They were a part of the government, right?
Yeah.
Police, do you consider them being citizens, or you consider them being part of the government?
I mean, I don't consider them the same as the military. And
no,
I also
agree.
I do consider police to be good guys with guns.
Well, as we know, not all. Don't stereotype police, because some of them are not so good, right? I mean, everybody's different, right? And I think the issue is, and it sucks, because I think we want all the police to be good, and we want to think of them as doing the right thing all the time, and being these infallible heroes. And we've seen time and time again recently that that's not always the case. It sucks because that's not what I want either. But
yeah, I mean, to take for granted the idea that if only there were armed teachers in this situation, they would have had a higher percentage chance of doing the right thing than trained, sworn law enforcement officers. It's like, I don't know that I can just take that for granted now either.
Correct. And that's the thing though. You got to compare it. Like, who would have expected 19 officers to not do anything? All 19 of them.
Yeah. Right.
Like, that's what's going on there. Who instructed them? Or how did that happen? Like, that's where I think people need to look into is, talk about people not doing their job, like CarMax, right?
Yeah.
Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, I know. And the other factor is, I've always also believed, the problem with gun laws in this country is that we don't enforce them enough. I read some statistic that said, like,
we have plenty of gun laws, 2019 not being enforced. Right.
2019, like something like 72,000 people tried to buy a gun who couldn't because of something in their background. And of those 72,000, 13 of them were actually prosecuted for trying to buy a gun, even though they weren't allowed to.
Wow.
So that's not enough. However, the most recent mass shootings that have been in the news, the one in Buffalo, the one in Uvalde, those two crazy guys that shot the place up, and I don't mean crazy as in mental illness, I mean crazy as in something off and wrong with them in the way that they see the world and the way that they see other humans. They followed every gun law. They passed background checks. They did what they were supposed to do, and they legally bought those guns. So I don't know what to do with that information, but what I can say is I'm not willing to hold on to seeing things the way that I've looked at them for the last 30 years, just because I've heard some good talking points and some good arguments for keeping things the way they are. I mean, we got to figure out something that's going to change, and I don't know that we can just chalk it up to, well, we need to enforce the existing gun laws and we need better mental health, because honestly, I mean, this podcast is essentially about men's mental health.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem to be the priority in this country. That a lot of when a mass shooting happens, a lot of people on the right want to say, well, what we need is better mental health, but it doesn't seem like they're actually taking any steps to make mental health better either.
Yeah. I think there needs, I mean, I part of mental health to me and being mindfully masculine is taking accountability and doing what you said you're going to do when you're going to do what you said you're going to do when you're going to do it. And part of that is doing your job. And I feel like there needs to be accountability and there needs to be consequences that are actually enforced when people aren't doing what they are basically intended to do. And I mean, I don't want to simplify it, but to me, it seems like if some of these officers had actually done their job, and if there was consequences that like they knew ahead of time, that, we have a history of actually really coming down hard on people not doing it, especially police officers not doing their job, then maybe things would have been different. Maybe.
I saw a meme, which you can't base your political positions on memes. At least you shouldn't, in my opinion. That basically said, there is no law, there is no civil or criminal penalty in the United States for if a police officer in the course of their duty decides that the thing that they need to do to save lives is likely to hurt or kill them. They don't have to do it. They can choose not to do that. And they're not going to be penalized. They're not going to be fired, and they're not going to be subject to criminal prosecution if they decide, hey, I did the math and I thought there was a good chance I'd die if I did this, so I chose not to do it. The way the law works in this country, it's like, okay, then you're off the hook.
Wow. Okay. Well,
so
I wasn't aware of that.
If that is true, which I can't say for sure that it is, but if that's true, then it's like, how do we think about solving any of these problems?
Right. Yeah.
Then obviously in the military, you don't get to refuse an order because it might kill you.
Yeah. Then we need other people to respond when there's situations like this, right? If that's the way it's going to be for police officers, then we need some other. In this case, we had parents who tried to respond and they got handcuffed. Right. And so that also is just another level of, wow, I really.
But but even that's a difficult situation, because I mean, look, what if I was a police officer? What if I was a hostage negotiator and I'm trying to, I mean, that's the other thing. A guy in a locked building with a gun, we can't treat it like a hostage situation anymore. I mean, it's just like, when you're on a plane and somebody tries to hijack the plane, you can't believe, okay, they're going to fly us to Cuba and then my government's going to get me back to Miami when it's over. It's like, no, you have to assume that whenever a hijacker tries anything on a plane, he's going to fly it into something. And so you've got to essentially tear him apart with your bare hands with your fellow passengers. And that's the only way that you survive. Yeah.
So a hostage, so somebody who is basically, and I just listened to, never split the difference. Right. Which was, authored by the lead international hostage negotiator for the FBI. And basically the times where they, did not get it right, where they were times where they were negotiating with a guy that didn't want anything other than to cause death and destruction. And they made a couple of mistakes with that. Right. So the people who are actually, taking hostages and want something will communicate and they'll reach out. They're not going to lock themselves in a building and, just start shooting things. They don't want anything. They have what they want at that point, right? They've got a bunch of potential victims.
Yeah.
Not money, not any type of, freedom or whatever.
Yeah,
So you're right. It's not a hostage negotiation situation at that point. So, letting parents run in to get their kids, if they want to take that risk, then you let them do that if the cops aren't going to do it.
I know it's the one lesson I'm taking away, which, may seem small in the scheme of things, is that I have no answers for how to fix this. And, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick out the 2 or 3 politicians on the right and the left that I believe actually care about solutions and actually, they act out of good faith and not just wanting to have more power and wanting to get reelected. And
can you find that many on each side?
I think I can find 2 or 3.
Spoiler
alert, the 2 or 3 that you'll find on the left and the right are the ones that the right and the left have pretty much turned their back on because they believe that person's a traitor to their caucus.
Yeah.
And the politicians that other people in their party don't like are probably the only ones that give a crap about solving problems.
Yeah, I would say I would agree with you.
And so I'm going to, whether I consider them to be too liberal, too conservative, whatever, those are the people, if they're talking about this, that I'm going to listen to and say, okay, let me be at least open to the idea that they might have something figured out that I don't, because we got to change something so that this stuff doesn't happen. It's when you look at the numbers of people that die from gun violence every year, school shootings is essentially, and I know this sounds heartless, but it's a rounding error when you compare the violence that happens as a result of suicide and gangs and violent crime and people using violence to support their drug enterprises. I mean, which that has decriminalized drugs, and a lot of that violence just goes away the next day. But I am open to the idea that I don't have this figured out, and I need to be willing to be convinced that there are ways that I haven't thought about that could solve this, that might be helpful, because I don't know what to do. I don't have kids, but the idea of even a lotto winner's chance that I'm going to send them to school and they're going to get shot is not something that when I am a parent, I'm going to be able to accept.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. I would hope that if anything, this latest shooting inspires a little bit of humility to say, this sucks. I hope it can change, but I don't have all the solutions, and I need to be willing to have an open mind on what might lead to a solution. And I'm certainly not saying, the government should buy back everybody's guns. I don't know that would actually do anything. I suspect that it wouldn't, but if the right person comes to me with a logical sounding argument and some data to back it up, no matter what it is, I'm gonna give everything a fair hearing at this point.
Yep. Yeah. So when you've got other difficult things to try to figure out in life, what do you like to do? Do you rely on the exercise to kind of clear your mind? Or
not as much,
I know you like to walk, and I know
I do like to walk.
I started that in the mornings as well, so I really like it. I really like it a lot.
Yeah, there's too many wise men and women and smart thinkers that rely on ideas occurring to them while they're walking for me not to do the same, right? And so there are certainly physical benefits to it as well, but the physical benefits that I've been neglecting in the last couple months that I am committed to getting back into is strenuous exercise and subjecting myself to doing some hard things on a more regular basis for a couple reasons. Number one, my body feels that feeling of being tired after working out hard, and then the feeling you get either waking up after a nap or the next morning after you work yourself out hard. It feels really good, and I miss that.
Yeah.
And part of the other thing that I really like about strenuous exercise is the feeling you get from knowing that you've determined yourself to be worthy of doing hard things for, and feeling, after you've done something hard, like I did that for me because I'm worth doing hard things for.
Yeah, I think you need to be intentional about that. That just doesn't come to you if you have taken, even if you've taken a break for a while and you get back into it, you feel most obligated. And it's like, a lot of times, I know I do anyway, I should speak for myself. I feel obligated and a little guilty that I haven't been working out for so long. And then when I get back into it, if you don't go in with that mindset that, this was for you, this was a gift for you, this is, it's more just kind of like, well, I needed to do that because I'm a bad person because I went so long without exercising.
Yeah. And I agree. There is a little bit of guilt, and that guilt is a fresh reminder. I mean, look, I'm going to focus mostly for this episode on weight training, because that is the exercise that I enjoy the most and also feels the hardest, and so feels the most fulfilling to me when I do it. And the going back into the gym after a while, I feel guilty, like that I've neglected it for so long. And also that delayed onset muscle soreness that I get is both, it inconveniences me for the first, I'd say 6 to 8 days after I get back into the gym.
Mm-hmm.
I feel the inconvenience of dealing with that soreness. And that soreness also helps me. Well, not helps me. It renews my guilt every time that I try to walk around Disney World with a friend and I'm having a difficult time walking because my quads hurt so much for the squat workout that I did for the first time in 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of both, well, at least I got back in the gym and I did something that I knew I had to do, but doggone it, what a loser I am for getting out of this habit for so long that I have to experience a soreness again. So it's certainly a double-edged sword where, you get the positive and the negative feelings from that muscle soreness. And the worst I get, my chest, my arms, my shoulders, that the muscle soreness I get from working those out after a while, it almost feels good.
Mm-hmm.
But the quads, where 2 days after I get back in the gym to do squats, and I have to use the handicap bathroom at Disney World because I need the bars to be able to get myself back up off the toilet. That is not fun. Yeah, it's worth it, but it's not fun.
I think that's why it's very common for people to skip leg day. I mean, it's a lot of times, yes, they're covered up more than the other parts of your body, but those quads, when they're sore, it makes everything difficult because you're walking all day long. You're going to feel it so much more. With the upper body, you're not feeling it all the time because you're not moving your upper body nearly as much. With the legs, though, yeah, man, you're feeling it. That's a lot more often.
I know. And, the good news is my lower body workouts, and we'll talk about our individual plans a little bit, I hope. I follow the starting strength method from Mark Rippetoe. I got into it like 5 years ago, and his novice linear progression, where you basically do 4 exercises and you add a little bit of weight to the bar every time you work out until you can't do it anymore. Mm-hmm. So the 2 lower body exercises are the squat and the deadlift, and the upper body exercises are the overhead press and the bench press. And the good news is, for me at least, once I get back into it, I'll have some muscle soreness for maybe 2 weeks maximum on my squats and my deadlifts. And then even though the weight keeps going up, I don't get sore anymore after that, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to, my leg day every week isn't miserable. And that's a good thing. Cause it would stop me from doing it if every week that I added more weight to the bar, I was going to feel sore again. It doesn't do that for me. So it after being back into it for 2 weeks, I get really tired. I get to the part where my legs feel like they're jelly, and I won't be able to walk, but I don't get the soreness that I get after those first 2 weeks. So
okay.
So let me talk about it a little bit more. So like 5 years ago, 6 years ago now, maybe, I bought Starting Strength on Amazon. It's a book by Mark Rippetoe, Rippetoe. And he basically came up with a methodology for, I think he mentioned at some point in an interview, maybe, that it's basically a plan for weak kids who want to get strong so that they can play football or, get into weight training. It's a plan for them to get stronger in a very compressed timeline. And so the way it works is 3 days a week, every other day, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You will do 2 alternating workouts. You'll squat every workout and you'll deadlift every workout. And then the lift in the middle is either an overhead press or a bench press. And you alternate those. So on Monday, you'll start with a bench press. And then on Wednesday, you'll do an overhead press. And then on Monday, you'll do a bench press again. And then the following week, it'll be overhead, bench, then overhead. And again, you squat and you deadlift every time. But the middle workout alternates between overhead press and bench press. Now he'll also add power cleans in there if you're young enough. But once you get to be, mid late 30s, early 40s, mid 40s, where I am now, he's like, I'm not as concerned about you power cleaning and building up your power as I am in you staying injury free. So he'll basically let you drop the power clean when you get older, like you and I are.
So for those people who aren't familiar with the power clean, what does that movement look like?
Yeah. So basically you start with a barbell on the ground with plates that are the size of 45s, whether they actually are, they could be just 10s if you've got access to that kind of equipment.
So they made out of balsa wood.
Exactly. Yeah. He does tell people he'll start some people off who can't start with 10s with literally pieces of, round pieces of wood.
Oh, really? I was totally kidding. Oh, wow.
Yeah. He'll say, start with pieces of wood that just will get the bar to the appropriate height. And so you lift up the bar off the ground and you let it sort of hang. And then you do essentially what's a jump, and then you get the bar up to the point where it rests on your
collarbone there.
Yeah, collarbone area.
Okay.
And then you just put it back down, and then you pick it up and you do it again. He doesn't do the it's not a clean and press where you put it up over your head, which is an Olympic lift, I believe. It's considered an Olympic lift.
Okay.
But yeah, he's just you basically jump and force the bar up, and then you catch it and let it rest on your collarbone, and then you put it back down.
And you said it increases your power. Where does that?
I think he would consider that to be a full body exercise, right? Because it's certainly your legs are responsible for jumping it. You jump so you get it off the ground, and then I would say it's an arm exercise too, in a way.
Yeah. But I could see that be potentially injury prone, considering if you're especially using a lot of weight and you are, moving your body very quickly under your arms, very quickly underneath it.
Right.
Yeah. A lot of joint movement there. Right. So yes, I can see that potentially being,
and the reason that he exempts older guys from doing it, as I understand it, is the older you get, the more likely you've got bones and muscles that are stronger than your ligaments and tendons. And so when your ligaments and tendons can't handle quite the and that's one of the reasons that he believes in. He tells you to load the bar incrementally, which is add 2.5, add 5 pounds to the bar at a time, because that gives your connective tissue a chance to sort of get stronger as your muscles and your skeletal system's getting stronger as well. So you do it slowly.
Yeah.
And that way you're not blowing out a ligament or a tendon, because I mean, those things, number one, will often take surgery to fix. Where if you go a little too hard on your muscles and you get a little bit of a pull, then some ibuprofen and some ice can often, you can get back to a healthy state without having to go to the doctor or anything like that. You can ice things and you can heat things and you can take some anti-inflammatories, and, you give yourself a little bit of rest and you'll be back, you'll be ship shape again.
Yep.
Where a ligament or a tendon that separates from a bone or a muscle, then, you're making a trip to the emergency room or to your doctor, and they're having to get in there and fix something.
Yeah.
Which, being self-employed, not having great insurance, I am not willing to risk that. So power cleans are off the table for me as far as I'm concerned. I am not having increased power. Flexibility and strength matter way more to me than power do, because I'm not a competitive athlete in any kind of way. I don't need to be able to jump high or run fast or explode off the starting blocks.
Yep.
So for me, just those 4 core exercises are good for me. Another thing that I wanted to mention, which I'm going to ask you about too, is I want to talk a little bit about what I bring to the gym with me, and what sort of accessories I need. So basically me getting back into working out this week, which is I'm going to the gym today, and I'm going to get back into lifting today. And for that, I don't really need anything except a comfortable pair of shoes.
Mm-hmm.
But as the weight goes
may want to wear some shorts too.
Okay, some shorts.
Just throwing that out there.
Okay, I'll wear shorts.
Suggestion. Don't mean to tell you what to do, but just thought, maybe some underwear.
I thought this was LA Fitness. I thought you guys were going to be, kind of liberal and hippy dippy. What's the problem here? Yeah. So shorts, a shirt, and some comfortable socks and shoes is all it's going to take for me to get into it right now. However, when the weight starts going up, I do use a weight belt, and I will use that for when things get real heavy. I'll use it for all 4 of those exercises. I'll squat with my belt. I will overhead press with my belt. I'll deadlift with my belt. And I'll even bench press with my belt.
Okay.
Because the purpose of a belt is to give you resistance so that when you take in a deep breath and you push against the belt, it helps you to your core. You can strain and make all those muscles more solid to support your spine. Mm-hmm. There is some false information out there. The idea that the belt helps you lift more weight. It might help you lift more weight, but it's not because it bears any of the actual load of that weight. It just lets you make your trunk muscles harder than you would be able to without a belt. It gives you something to push against.
Yeah.
And give you a more rigid form to be able to lift those weights with. So I will use that. The other thing I like to do is when my deadlifts get heavy, when my deadlifts get too heavy for me to be able to do the double overhand grip, I used to do the alternating grip so that, when it felt like the grip was slipping out of one hand, it was slipping more into the other hand. But when older guys start lifting more weight in the deadlift and you've got that supinated grip on your left hand, I have heard about people blowing out their biceps.
Oh, geez.
Because when you've got the one hand overhand, that overhand grip can put more strain on your bicep than the other arm is experiencing. So now I use lifting straps. If the weight gets too much where I can't do just a unassisted double overhand grip, then I've got these leather straps that I'll wrap around the bar, and that helps me get more weight off the ground. And usually for me, that's just my work set. When I deadlift, I warm up to the point where I can do 1 set of 5 at pretty heavy. I think the heaviest I ever got on my deadlift was somewhere in the 360, 370 range. I've never been able to get into the 400 range on a deadlift, but when I do that final work set, my hand grip is just not strong enough to be able to pull it 5 times. So I need to either do an alternate grip or assisted with wrist straps, which that's all I do now. I don't do that alternate grip anymore. I only use wrist straps when it gets real heavy. Mm-hmm. Let's see. So in addition to that, I have weightlifting shoes. I have squat shoes, which basically they have a heel that is elevated maybe 1/2 an inch, 3/4 of an inch, and that helps keep your knees in the right position above your toes.
Okay.
And so I wear those. I got they're Adidas powerlifting shoes. I want to say they were $65 maybe on Amazon, and I only wear them to lift, so they still look brand new. They just sit in when I'm not squatting or deadlifting, they just sit in my bag and they look brand new. And I'm sure at some point you could, blow out the heels and the bottoms of them from too much strain of weight, but I'm at least a decade away from that with the pair that I've got. So I'm not concerned. Those guys are going to last me for a while. And then the other thing I usually work my way up to is taking caffeine pills before I lift. Mm-hmm. So I've got a big old bottle of those in my gym bag. And right now, if I took the level that I take when I've been working out regularly, if I just went to the gym and took those today, I would absolutely vomit and feel like I was dying, because that is something, if you're into taking caffeine to help you work out, you've got to work just like heavy weight, you got to work your way up to it. Because
how many milligrams were you taking? Do you know?
I would take 800 to 1,000 milligrams when.
That's a lot. Just to give you guys an idea, a typical cup of coffee is somewhere between 60 and 100 milligrams, depending on what the size of a cup is and where you're getting it from. I get jittery at 200 milligrams.
Yeah, I would.
So
A regular workout for me would be 600 milligrams, and if I was going to try to PR a deadlift or a squat, like when my squat gets around 6 plates, when I'm trying to do, 315 or higher, then yeah, I would typically take at least 600, maybe 800 milligrams to help me with that squat.
And how much rest are you taking in between each set typically?
At least 5 minutes.
Okay.
When I'm getting over 300 on the deadlift or the squat, or I mean, man, I still haven't gotten my overhead press to 135 overhead. Which doesn't, God, that's probably the hardest exercise for me to do. When the weight gets heavy for me and I'm trying to take the bar from, on my collarbone to completely up over my head with shoulders in full extension, that might be my hardest exercise, but it's the one that feels the best when the numbers when I start getting back into PR territory. It feels amazing, but God, is it hard.
Yeah. Yeah. So how often do you recalibrate your form or check your form? Do you feel like you need to do that at this point, or you have it down? Because I know sometimes I'll be working out and I won't realize, I kind of fall back into some old habits and not realize, hey, my form needs correction. Fortunately, I've had some people been nice enough to come over and go, hey, look, your squatting is a little bit off. This is a little bit off. Or I'll watch an exercise video and be like, oh yeah, I forgot I need to do this. Do you ever check in or, recalibrate at any point?
The problem I run into, fortunately for me, I find deadlifting to be the easiest one to keep my form solid on, because I really never got into it until starting strength, until I watched Rippetoe's videos that he did with Brett McKay from Art of Manliness. Like, that was the only way I learned how to deadlift, so that's kind of the only way I know. So for me, it's like, if the lift doesn't fail, then it's pretty close to right for me with deadlift. Squat, the problem I'll run into sometimes is not getting my behind down below parallel when the weight gets real heavy. When the weight gets kind of heavy, I sort of need that bounce at the bottom to help me get it back up. And if you get the bounce, then you're definitely going below parallel. So that's good. Mm-hmm. But yeah, when it gets real heavy, 300 plus, that's real heavy for me, at least. I know for some people that's a warm up set. But when it gets real heavy for me, sometimes I'll feel like maybe I'm not bottoming out all the way. I'm not getting past parallel where I should be. Mm-hmm. And so, I will rewatch, and bench is probably the toughest for me to get my form good. And so I'll rewatch the series of videos that Rippetoe and Brett McKay did, and just kind of watch them. And before I go work out, just sort of keep some of those images and some of those cues that they mentioned in my mind. One of the big things for me on bench is the arched back, that part where, somebody could easily slide a hand between your mid and upper back and the bench. Sometimes when the weight gets heavy for me, I don't keep that giant arch that I really need, which is silly because the more your back is arched, the less work you have to do. Mm.
Yeah,
but
that's good.
And fortunately, there are now starting strength coaches frequently are widely dispersed around, because Orlando even has a starting strength gym now, where if you've got the time and the money and you want to buy in 100% to this methodology, you can pay some bucks and know that you're doing it right constantly, because they have classes, they have individual sessions, they have all that stuff where, I got into it early enough where I feel like I've got enough of a handle on it that I can, as long as I stay mindful of what I'm doing, I can get it done right. But there's opportunities there to get checked out by people who really know what they're doing and can help you out with it. So
yeah, I'm a big fan of that. Every time I try something new, like, I was learning how to swing a golf club, I went and I got lessons. I didn't try to figure it out on my own. When I was younger, I absolutely tried to figure stuff out on my own. With that entrepreneurial mindset where it's like, I can do this, I can figure it out.
Right.
But you just save so much time, money, and in the long run by investing a little bit up front and get a coach and get into the good habits and continue to work with somebody who knows what you're doing. If you're going to spend the time and energy and money in doing anything, why not get the most efficient route to doing things correctly?
Yeah, and especially, I mean, think about, if you're a guy in your, I'd say mid 30s or older, I mean, the risk you take in injury and the time that takes away from your job, from your family, from your ability to work out. I mean, doing something, injuring yourself because you didn't know better, there's a huge opportunity cost for that. And I would say, yeah, you're way better off just taking some money out of the bank and paying somebody to teach you how to do it the right way than just trying to do it on your own and possibly hurting yourself and then having every aspect of your life suffer because you've got an injury that you didn't need to have.
Yeah. And when you're working with weights like that, I think that the risk of injury is a little higher than,
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that. The biggest safety concern with the workout that I do. So if God help you, if you hear me talk about working out and you decide you want to be like me, you've got other problems. But if you do decide that, it's working for Charles, I'll try it. The biggest thing with the starting strength workouts that I do is the bench press. That's really the only one that can kill you, is the bench press. So if you're working out alone, either I used to work out in my garage. I had a power rack in my garage and a bench, and I would just work out there. If you're bench pressing by yourself, never put a collar on the end of the barbell, so that if you get into trouble, you can just sort of push it one way or the other and you'll just dump the weights off. And as soon as the weights dump off of one side, trust me, they will instantly dump off the other side too, because the one end of the bar will fly up in the air and they'll slide off. So really the only one of these weights or one of these exercises that can kill you is a barbell with a lot of weight on it being stuck on your chest or on your neck or on your face.
Yeah.
So if you're working out, if you're bench pressing alone, never collar the weights, never use a Smith machine to bench press alone. Only bench press alone in a way where if you get into trouble, you can get the weights off of one end and then the weights will immediately fall off the other end. And then all you have to deal with is a 45-pound bar.
Yeah. See, that's a great tip, because I mean, even I thought about this for a second, I was like, oh yeah, just use a Smith machine, but you're right. You can't even dump those weights because there's a certain point where you can't notch the, where you may not, where it comes down on you, it might not be a hook, a little clasp there for you to lock in the bar to take that weight off of you. You might be right in between there where it's like crushing your chest, and then there's nothing you can, or your neck, God forbid.
Yeah. I mean, because even 135 pounds stuck on your chest long enough. I mean, if you're in trouble long enough, or if you pass out or something, it doesn't take a lot of weight to be on your heart and lungs for too long before it's lights out.
Yeah. Now, I mean, that's again by yourself. I mean, if you're in a gym, it's a lot less likely, people aren't going to stand around. I hope not anyway, and let that happen. So,
I won't even do it, because part of it is the form that I'm trying to maintain and stuff. If you're bench pressing, you should be able to pretty much keep those weights right against the edges of the barbell without, there shouldn't be a lot of sliding of the plates. If you're dealing with so much weight that you're doing a lot of this and the weights are kind of shimmying off the end, then you're probably working out with too much weight. So I've never felt, unless I'm working out with a buddy where, you are literally going to help me pick up the bar, put it up over my chest, and then, put it back on the uprights for me. Then maybe I would collar it if I knew I was dealing with I was trying for a PR and I had a friend who was right there watching me do it. Yeah. Then maybe I would collar it. But except in that very limited circumstance, I never collar my bench press.
Yeah. No, it's a good tip.
So tell me a little bit about when you started lifting, or if you want to get into other strenuous exercise you like, that's fine. And then also I'd like to know what's in your gym bag. What do you walk in there with?
Yeah. So I kind of take a different approach. I've never been a naturally strong person, so I've never really even pushed it. Ironically, I've never pushed to do strength-based workouts. And a lot of that also came from me being a little bit, maybe watching too many videos or whatever of people, dropping weights on themselves, especially a lot of times it's like power lifters where it's, ridiculous amount of weights and they're getting hurt and stuff. So those type of exercises I've typically steered away from. And I follow more of like a bodybuilding type of protocol where it's more about, it's about actually it's less about strength and it's a little bit more about muscle hypertrophy, growing the muscle. So typically the workouts and the people that I've been following have been bodybuilders. One of the guys that I've learned the most from was on the Mr. Olympia stage, Ben Bukowski, and he really focused on the squeezing and the tension on the muscle itself. So you don't actually need any weight to squeeze your muscles and make them really tight and isolate them, right? So what he says is learn proper execution so that you are making the workout actually as difficult as you possibly can, or the exercise as difficult as you possibly can, because then what you do is you're engaging the entire full muscle. Whereas, if you're only going, you're doing, bicep curls that is only, that are only from, parallel up to your shoulders. You're only engaging half of the bicep. Whereas if you let it go all the way down to the ground and even squeezing your tricep to then, you're getting the most extension of that bicep, as possible before you bring it back up and contract it. Right. So his philosophy is really check your ego at the door and start going very light weights and just practice the movement. And one of the nice things that does is it minimizes the strain on your ligaments and your joints. And so you just really just try to focus on squeezing the muscle, and you're also going a little bit slower. So it's typically 1 or 2 seconds to squeeze the muscle, and then anywhere from 3 to 4 to 5 seconds as you allow that muscle to basically the eccentric motion versus the concentric. The eccentric is kind of just relaxing the muscle at that point, right? Extending it out. And so for most of my workouts, that's kind of the protocol I've been following. And then typically it's a lot less rest in between sets. It's somewhere between, anywhere from 45 seconds to 2 minutes, depending on the type of workout you're looking for. And so that, and a lot of times, you do similar compound movements, you do squats and you do some deadlifts and things like that. But it really is more about focusing on the muscle, not moving the weight. And the downside of that is, I'm not as strong as I could be if I was doing a workout like what you're doing, And so what I've realized over time is that it's good to kind of mix things up a little bit. Right. And so, and probably because as you get stronger, you can handle more weight and you can, build more muscle as well. So one of my mistakes has been not switching things up enough and switching over to a strength workout, which is, kind of like what you're doing. Yeah. And so I think that's limited, my own physique goals in certain circumstances.
Yeah. I mean, part of the thing to figure out if you're looking to get into weight training is, what's your goal and what are you trying to get out of it? And, if you're mainly concerned with aesthetics, then you're going to work out one way. If you're mainly concerned with endurance and being able to apply your strength to some sort of a sport that you're into, that's another thing. If you just like watching the numbers go up, which, I go in between all different motivations. Like sometimes I feel like, man, I want to look better. Sometimes I feel like I want to be stronger. Sometimes I want hiking to be easier for me. I mean, there's all kinds of things, but the end of the day, if I focus just on feeling like I'm as strong as this body I was born with can be, that usually is the motivation that keeps me going back to the gym. Just watching those numbers either go up or feeling like I'm getting closer and closer to being able to do a particular exercise with a weight that I've never been able to do before. That's really the thing that gets me back into the gym. and gets me going back. For me, it's about the numbers. I want to feel like I'm stronger at this particular exercise than I've ever been before in my life. And the cool thing about strength training and even powerlifting in particular for men is you can keep going up and up and up well into an age where, like, I'm 44 years old, going to turn 45 in November. And no matter how much training I do, I will probably never be able to run a 100-yard or 100-meter dash as fast as I could when I was in high school or college. There's like no training I would be able to put my body under that would make me faster than I was when I was a kid. But that's not true with lifting weights. If you're willing to put in the time and the effort and support it by eating right, doing things like, going to the doctor, getting your testosterone levels checked to see if maybe you would benefit from testosterone replacement therapy. If you're willing to do those kinds of things, you can get stronger well into an advanced age as a man, where you might not be able to get faster or be able to get some of your other markers of good physical fitness up the way that you can strength. That's
a great way of thinking about it. And, you said a few things there that I just want to remind people of. Is a lot of times people are intimidated to go to the gym because they're looking around. They're like, they don't look as good as that person. They don't look as good as that person. They're not lifting as much weight as the other person.
I absolutely had that problem when I went from home gym to working out in a gym. That was definitely a concern. I was like, people are going to look at me and wonder why I'm doing it wrong, why I'm not able to lift as much weight as them. And then a year later of going to a gym, I realized I don't care what anybody else is doing in there. So they probably don't care about me either.
100%. And the thing you got to remember too, is everybody has different goals. You just listed out all these different goals that that people have, right? Somebody could be in there for strength gains rather than for physique goals. Somebody could be in there to rehab a shoulder, right? Sometimes you see them doing some strange exercises and you're like, they look good. Should I be doing that? Right. But meanwhile, you have no idea what happened to them. You have no idea that they're just actually rehabbing an injury that they had because maybe they lifted too much weight, right? So that's part for me. Also checking your ego out the door is realize you're there for yourself. And comparing, there's always going to be somebody who's going to be better looking, who's going to have better shape, who's going to be stronger. And there's always going to be people who aren't as good looking, who aren't going to be as strong, who aren't going to be in as much shape, right? And you will never be the best or the worst. And so just kind of realize that, focus on who you were yesterday and forget all the rest, and just work on, hey, did I do a little bit better than I did last time?
Right. Yeah, it's and that, part of what we talked about earlier about comparisons. It's like, got to compare yourself to yourself and compare yourself to where you were in the past and where you want to be in the future. And because again, you don't know what somebody has been working for the last 10 years in the gym.
Right.
You don't know what kind of you don't know what their mom and dad could have been completely biologically and athletically gifted, where their first day in the gym, they might look 10 times better than you do.
Yeah.
And it's not because they've been working hard on it. It's because they got lucky.
And it may not be because they're doing that weird exercise that you think you've never seen before. And that's the secret to their success.
Right.
All these games, our minds play with each other, or with themselves, I should say. Right. So you talked about also things I have in my gym bag. So I do have the lifting straps. I also have these things you may want to check out. I can loan them to you, called haul-in hooks. And they're basically two big metal prongs. that are designed for lifting. And so it.
Oh yeah. I have seen those. I've never used them, but I've seen them.
Yeah. There's a big Velcro strap that goes around your wrists. And then the hooks, they're two metal hooks that kind of, line up with your fingers with your grip. And so they really help support when I'm doing some heavy weight. They really help support that now. And it'd be good for, deadlifts and things like that. On some of the other smaller dumbbells and things like that, they're a little bit awkward, not really necessary, but I find those to be a little bit better actually than the straps for holding on when my grip has just gone away.
Yeah, one thing I will say about that is with the straps or the hooks like you use is, don't go out and buy these things and then start lifting like every warm-up set and every work set with them, because part of what the deadlift is supposed to do for you is make your hand grip stronger, because having a good grip is something that, I mean, there's no telling when you're going to have to lift something heavy for work or for trying to get something done around the house, and you can leverage the deadlift for making your grip stronger. So I only use those things at the very end of the, I do all my warm-up sets, which is usually 5 of them, and then I do my work sets, and I only will use the straps or the alternate grip at the very end of it, because part of the benefit, you don't want to rob yourself of the benefit of using a deadlift to make your grip stronger.
Sure.
Because that will, that reminds me, another couple exercises that I do that are sort of supplemental or just really convenient for me, because I've got a pull-up bar here at my camper where I can go out and do chin-ups and pull-ups and dips without having to go to the gym. Because one of the things that I've sort of talked myself into is this idea of, if I'm trying to get my lifts higher on the starting strength program, and I'm doing all the eating and, putting in the protein and the food volume that will help me get bigger muscles, is I don't want to blow up to be in 200 pounds just because I'm trying to get my lifts up. So one of the things that I will do is do dips and chin-ups and pull-ups around my house whenever I think about it. Whenever I'm coming or going, I'll just go ahead and knock some out, because part of it is, I don't know if it actually works, but it helps me feel like that's one of the things I can do along with my walks and my jogging to stop myself from blowing up too big while I'm trying to get my numbers up. And
I'm going to throw something out here based on the information that you shared earlier, in terms of that good feeling that you have after a workout, right?
Yeah.
To me, it's very similar to because you're squeezing all of your muscles, and there's something that basically when you squeeze all the muscles in your body repeatedly, there are definitely feel good hormones that get released. And to me, that's not much different than having an orgasm, or as somebody had mentioned, a doctor had mentioned to me, is if you have trouble relaxing before going to sleep, you could sit there and lie there in bed and either have an orgasm or squeeze all of your muscles, go through each of the body parts and squeeze for a few seconds each of your legs, your arms, and get really granular, your hands, your glutes, everything else like that. And you'll notice that you just feel a lot more relaxed. And sometimes that's enough to just drift you off very nicely to sleep as well. So
nice.
I think anytime again, it comes back to that strenuous exercise that you were talking about, as human beings, we definitely benefit from having that and going through that really strong, squeezing of the muscles.
Yeah, it definitely, once you've done that, it does feel like, it feels like work has been accomplished, and that's a nice feeling. I mean, you get that when you finish a project at work, or you have a strenuous workout, that feeling like, okay, as a human, I just accomplished getting something done that was difficult. And that feeling, you do sleep better at night when you have that feeling during the day. And that's why, part of the change that you can make in your mind to make working out easier is, like we talked about before, this idea that you're doing something for yourself because you're worth doing something, you're worth doing hard things for. And, in the current environment we talk about self-care a lot, and sometimes self-care feels a little bit more like self-indulgence or self-spoiling, where, it's only the idea of buying something nice for yourself or doing something fun is the kind of self-care that we focus on, where another kind of self-care is do something hard for yourself and sacrifice some of your time and your effort for yourself. And that does help you come away with this feeling of, I'm worthy of doing difficult things for. That is another kind of self-care, other than, giving yourself a facial or taking a long bath.
You're also pushing yourself to your uncomfortable zone, right? You are pushing yourself out of the comfort zone if you do some of the exercises to failure, or if you're doing more and more weight every time, and you get to the point of where, you're really pushing the boundaries a little bit, and then you break through them subconsciously, I really believe that kind of programs your brain for other things that are not physical related, to say, hey, I have the ability to now be uncomfortable, to be able to break through what my brain's saying that I can't do. right? So that absolutely translates, for me at least, to other projects that I'm trying to accomplish that I've never done before, and say, well, if I'm able to get out of my comfort zone, I'm able to accomplish things I didn't think I was going to be able to accomplish in the gym, then I can do this. I can figure it out.
Yeah, I one of the podcasts that I really enjoy that focuses a lot on this kind of workout, this kind of lifting, is called Barbell Logic, and particularly the older episodes where Matt and Scott were the hosts. They talk about the value, and I'm sure we mentioned on the podcast before, the value of voluntary hardship, where you basically say, I'm going to choose to subject myself to difficult things, so that when the involuntary hardships come, it's like, oh, I know what this feels like. I know what it feels like to, and one of the things David Goggins talks about all the time is, you don't stop when you're tired, you stop when you're done. You decide, like something is worth doing, and this task is worth finishing. And so when I'm in the middle of the task and I'm tired, I don't stop because I'm tired. I only stop because I'm done.
That's great. Yeah. And you got to tap into that sense of completion. A lot of us have that feeling where if something isn't complete, it feels odd. It feels off. And to me, a lot of times I've planned out a workout and go, okay, look, this is, in order for me to say this is complete, I need to finish. And one of the best apps that I found is called Fitbod, and it will actually keep track of your weights, the reps, the exercises that you've done. You can program it so that it will focus on the body parts, and it suggests exercises for body parts that are the most rested. And it will also continually add a little bit of weight or reps so that you're increasing the overall volume or the amount of weight that you're exercising and or using. And so that, you see it all right there in the app, and you say, okay, well, I'm tired, but I'm not done. And using that app helps me get to that point, because I see I haven't finished all the exercises yet.
Right.
And when I don't, I don't like it. It makes me uncomfortable. And it gets to the point of sometimes where I'm like, all right, well, you know what? I'll go back, or the next time I work out, I'm going to do these last couple sets of crunches that I didn't have time to do.
Yeah. One of the things that I also do will, I'll break from the Monday, Wednesday, Friday recommended schedule, because when the weight gets heavy and I need to do those 5 minutes, sometimes 8-minute rests between sets, that's a lot of time to spend in LA Fitness. And so what I'll do sometimes, instead of going Monday, Wednesday, Friday, is I'll work out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So I'll do four days instead of 3, and I'll put them all back to back, and then I'll just alternate, where one day I'll do squats and bench presses, and then the next day I'll do overhead press and deadlift, and then I'll go back to squat, bench, and then overhead press and deadlift. So I'm still getting the same number of lifts, done in the week, but I'm just separating them out so that I'm not spending an hour and a half at the LA Fitness, because that is a long time.
I'm just curious to see if you feel like that's affected your strength because you're not resting as much, or if affecting the weight, how quickly your weight goes up in terms of, the workout, if you're not resting.
Well, that's
based on their protocol.
That's where the Whoop band comes in, and where I since I've taken a couple months off of training, I haven't really been wearing my Whoop band like I should. But that is something I will watch. Now I'm going to start, when I get back, I'm just going to start with the 3-day a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday thing. And it's only when I start getting back into the heavy weights, which for me, again, on the deadlifts, that's 300 pounds plus, squats 300 pounds plus. On the overhead press, that's really, for me, about 100, 110, 115 or higher is when it starts getting really hard. And on the bench, my chest is the thing that drops off the fastest when I have been working out, and is the hardest to build back up. So really, God, 150 pounds feels like a ton of weight for me when I haven't been working my chest out. And so when I start getting into that area of, okay, this is getting hard, that's when I have to do those longer breaks in between sets. And that's when I'll be able to watch it. I'll see, okay, according to my Whoop band, 3 days a week feels like this, and the numbers say this, and then doing the 4 days a week looks and feels like this. And then I'll compare that to what Whoop says. And Yeah, if Whoop is telling me that I'm not getting enough rest because I'm working out every other day, even though I am alternating the body parts every other day, if it says, hey, this isn't cutting it, then I'll go back to 3 days a week. And if it takes an hour and a half of me being at the LA Fitness, then so be it, because I'm in it for watching those numbers go up.
Yeah, that sounds good. What would you say if you don't have anything else? I was going to say, what would what's one piece of advice, one takeaway for somebody who is either looking to get back in the gym or just start some training for themselves?
Oh, definitely. Set yourself up for success, meaning, divide it up into the smallest digestible chunk that you absolutely can. Some of that could be, just get dressed in your gym clothes and drive to the gym, maybe go inside, maybe do some workouts with the empty bar. Just figure out what the smallest thing you can do is that will make you feel like you got something done, and do that thing, and then just add to it a little bit at a time until you're doing a full workout. And yeah, for me today, I don't know if I'm going to go in and do the empty bar, because I do feel like I want to give myself a little bit of feedback that says, okay, I did something today. Like going in squatting 3 sets of 5 with the empty bar probably isn't going to be the lead to the delayed onset muscle soreness that I feel like I deserve, both in the good way and the bad way. So for me, I'll probably squat 135, 3 sets of 5 today, and that'll be enough to trigger my muscles to say, oh crap, it looks like we're doing this again.
Yeah.
And I want that feeling. So that's going to be the minimum for me, is going to the gym and doing something that will trigger some soreness, but also not something that will be so miserable that I'll feel like I can't go back in 2 days,
Yeah.
So I would say, that's the advice we give on anything, whether it comes to going to therapy or it comes to getting back into the gym or trying to work on your relationship with your partner. Do the smallest thing that you can pull off that will feel like you've done something to motivate you to try the next hardest thing next time.
Yeah. And I would add to that, something similar to what you were just saying is figure out a program that you want to do and look at all the exercises that it recommends that you're going to do in the future. And I would say spend a day going to the gym and not focusing on the weight at all, but practicing those exercises. So if, again, if there's 40 different exercises, just go and find out where where that equipment is in the gym. Go and use it and do, a couple of reps on very lightweight, so that you get an understanding of what that seat position needs to be, approximately what weight you should start with, where those exercises are, how that feels. And that way, when it comes time to actually start the workout, you're not scrambling. It's not extra work for you to then figure out where that equipment is, how much weight to use, what the seat position or the arm, machine needs to be. That way it's a lot more enjoyable. You're already familiar with it, and it makes it a lot easier that first time going in. It's going to be difficult enough that first time. Get familiar with everything, spend a day, invest that day or two to go and figure out where everything is and get yourself ready to go. So that's my piece of advice for anybody getting back into it, especially if you're going to go to a new gym or going to the gym for the first time, and potentially look into getting a trainer and get some instruction so that you make sure you're executing those exercises the right way. That being said, Charles, anything else we want to share before we call it a day?
No, not really. Just I encourage folks in general to figure out something you can do that is hard and strenuous, and that is easily measurable, so you can feel like you're making progress. And then you're not going to start looking different or feeling stronger the first time, and it's not going to be probably 2 weeks. It's not going to be 4 weeks. I typically find after about 6 weeks, I start seeing some differences in the mirror. And then, another 6 weeks after that, 12 weeks, people will start asking me if I'm, you've been working out, you've been back in the gym. And then, after about, I would say probably after about maybe I mean, certainly 6 months. If you can do it constantly for 6 months, you will look like a person that works out, and you will see, you and everybody else will see big differences from the way you were when you started.
Yeah. Part of that is realize, your identity, try to change that identity as somebody who doesn't work out to somebody who works out. You don't have to say, I'm king of the world or Mr. Olympia, whatever that is, but just, you are now that type of person. Just like if, you don't smoke cigarettes. Well, no, of course I'm a non-smoker. Well, now you're somebody who works out. Treat yourself and act like you're somebody who exercises regularly and works out. What would, in your mind, how would that person behave? And that might help guide your decisions when you've got some tough choices to make.
Yeah, absolutely. So this has been a good one, Dan. We've had this one on our list for a while.
Yeah,
we've kind of been holding on to it because you and I both have years of experience with this, so we didn't have to do a lot of prep work. We didn't have to link to a bunch of other articles, because this is something that has been part of our lives for a long time. And so if anybody has any questions, as always, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll share what we can based on both what we know and what the resources have been that have helped us out in getting through this.
Yeah. If you like Charles's program about strength, just email him at charles@mindfullymasculine.com. If you want to learn a little bit more about physique, more type of goals, you can email me, dan@mindfullymasculine.com. So
awesome.
Hope to hear from you guys.
All right, cool. Thanks, Dan. We'll talk to you next time.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks so much for spending time with us on the Mindfully Masculine podcast. If you liked the episode, or you think it would be useful for someone else, please leave us a review and join the Mindfully Masculine group on Facebook. Remember, fellas, don't act masculine, be masculine.